The best way to describe Juice Galaxy, it's an RPG where you're on every single psychedelic drug in existence. To say the game is weird is, not really saying anything new. But some people may forget that this is actually an RPG game. A pretty fun one too, I must say. And they're all actually a good fair share of bosses. Each one slightly different. In this video, I will be ranking each of the bosses from easiest to most difficult, and also in a way, I will also be telling you how to defeat them, at least in my specific way that I did it. All of this is subjective after all, there are multiple ways to fight each of these bosses, and some of them may be more difficult for you than they are for me, but this is just my personal list. Anyway, let us begin, shall we? Now I know he's not the first pick for what stands as a boss, but the wiki considers Ingot a boss and he's the first enemy you fight. He has multiple phases, and I hate having uneven numbers because without him it'd only be 7. So let's just include him anyway and not bother with trying to figure out if he actually counts or not. So Ingot will not actually move or do much of anything until you get the morning star he tells you about on the school's rooftop, in which case the battle quote unquote begins and his boss fight starts. For Ingot's first phase, he will very slowly lumber towards you in an attempt to collide into you. You're given more than enough time to slam him across the entire schoolhouse. It's actually quite fun to do so. And after a few hits, the real fight begins, I think. Now Ingot will actually try to attack you, in which case he just moves slightly quicker, and yeah, he's really not that dangerous at first glance. You see, there's something that some people don't tend to notice because they tend to just immediately wipe the floor of him. But he's actually very bouncy and his physics are very bizarre, to put it lightly. Sometimes when you hit him, he will go flying, and other times he'll just kind of ricochet almost back into you. I think that's something that only happens with me, but it's something to be noteworthy about. And his wonky physics can also make it almost difficult to keep track of where he is, considering he moves a lot quicker in his second phase. But overall, pretty weak first boss. It's what I would say if it was on normal difficulty. Good lord, Ingot is really freaking annoying on the maximum difficulty, which is where every enemy has a lot more health and deals a lot more damage. Ingot goes from being a joke and a punching bag to one of the most freaking annoying things to fight in the entire game. So he's super slow, and you have to be careful about that because this fat jerk will catch you off guard so many times. And the state that you would be in, him stepping on you is an instant kill. So any contact with him at all at this stage is instant death. You have to make sure that you do not have any physical contact with Ingot whatsoever at all. And considering your weapon knocks him around a lot, you can see how this becomes a bit of a problem. Now, what's the strategy for dealing with a level 8 Ingot? Normally, I would just try to get as much juice as possible to open the juice door and skip the fight completely, but I'm gonna assume that you're gonna be a man like me and try to actually fight him. In which case, it would be a good idea to try to pin him against something where he can't bounce around as much, And if he does, you have enough time to walk away or jump. Whenever he gets close, that's a good idea to start whacking at him. Be careful not to accidentally hit him into you, because trust me, that happens a lot. If you really don't feel confident getting close to him, and at this point I wouldn't, then the crates around you will sometimes drop weapons. Some of them may not be that helpful, but a few others like ball and chain or ranged weapon is a godsend in this fight, because now you don't have to get so close to him. Overall, Ingot still is probably the easiest thing to deal with in the game if we're talking about boss fights, but I thought that he had special mention considering we're dedicating an entire segment to him anyways.
So you've returned. Did you enjoy yourself? Have you seen what you wanted to see? Recess has been over for a long time, and you didn't even ask to leave campus. You are in so much trouble.
Mrs. Switter's up until this point has been a pretty antagonistic force to us ever since we started the game. And this is the moment when we finally get to actually put her in her place. Of course, she doesn't go down exactly without a fight. However, I don't really think the fight she puts up is that difficult. And some people probably do think she's a lot harder than the other bosses coming up, but I don't know. I never really died to her as much as I did with the other guy. So, and this is where the preference thing really starts coming into play and the whole opinions thing. Some people might find her way more difficult, but I find her really easy. Once you really get down to what she does and how her mechanics work, she's really not that difficult. She's pretty easy to predict, and overall, she's not that complex of a boss anymore. Regardless, I'll run down exactly how the fight plays out. After her opening monologue, which is awesome, she attempts to do the laser tactic, which as we know fails miserably because we're stronger now. So she tries a more direct approach, stabbing us with a sword. Of course, we're gonna wanna avoid that. So her attack patterns are very simple. She'll floating around and start gravitating towards you, attempting to hit you with a sword, which does do a lot of damage, so you do want to actually avoid her. You'll more or less be constantly following after you. Every few seconds or so, I think roughly every 10 to 12 seconds, she'll stop abruptly and then start summoning skeletons into the arena, which at this point are more minor hindrance than a natural main threat. It should be noted that destroying the boxes will unleash more enemies, so be wary of that. And also remember to keep track of Miss Withers herself because she actually moves very fast despite what you'd expect. But get a good couple hits on her and the teacher will be taking a very long nap to choose her Griffins of Heaven.
If this is the way it must be, then let it. I only wanted to teach you the true meaning of juice, but you are not ready. No one is. Long live the Juice Queen. I'm going to take a long nap now. Don't bother me.
Well. Look what they keep chatting. You finally found me.
The Creator is one of the first bosses you fight in the game, likely being the first actual boss after Ingot. You encounter him after you go through the evil cave and you enter his plane. In which case, and by the way as you mentioned, he never shuts up. But that's beyond the point. So the Creator has a couple of attacks. He used to be the easiest boss in the game, but Fishlicka since has buffed him to hell, and now he is way more difficult. You can actually die to him now. Okay, enough of me rambling, I'll actually have to fight him. So, he'll start off the battle pretty simply. He will start floating towards you, and then once he gets close enough, he'll stand still and start aiming and then shooting polywogs at you. This may not sound threatening at first, but these things steal nearly all of your health in one hit, so do not get hit by them. His aim is actually not as bad as it looks. Once he has summoned enough polywogs, he'll do this weird force spinning thing and start drawing them around, and then eventually launch them all towards you, in which case they will either explode or crash into you, doing a lot more damage. If you get too far away from him, he will then start trying to fly towards you, and then continue this pattern. One thing of note is that if you actually keep hitting him and knocking him down, he won't actually start shooting more polywogs or do his weird witch roll of hell that he does in order to launch them all. So if you ever need a good strategy, just get up and start wailing on him as quickly as possible, and the second he starts shooting polywogs, start doing a circle around him, because he can't hit you if you keep moving, and it'd be best to lure him away while you're flying, and then start hitting him, because, as I mentioned before, he doesn't fire while getting hit. The second he starts doing his polywog spell though, you need to run away, because this thing is unpredictable, and the more polywogs he has in his weird cloud of death, the more chances he has of killing you. Also, don't be right next to him when he does this. It's not gonna end well for you. But if you do as I instructed you, or find some other clever way to kill him, then you should be able to finally shut him up for good, get his crazy hair as well.
Congratulations. Time to die.
Huh. Another tourist
enters this land of pipes.
Sergeant Sucker Punch is the next big threat you'll be facing after you flush yourself down the toilet. It's a long story. Anyways, upon entering his arena, he will immediately begin attacking you. Sergeant Sucker Punch has only 3 attacks, and he actually will say them out loud, so it's actually pretty easy to tell what he's doing. He also has plunges for arms and legs, as you can tell, and because of this, he'll stick to anything he touches that isn't the player, which means that he can either get caught up in other areas or end up in very awkward positions. So you might want to be wary of that as well, but I think it's more detriment to him than to you. His first attack, the plunger kick, is very weak. He'll slowly start moving towards you and will try to, well, kick you. It's not as effective as he hopes it would be. His next attack is the plunger wheel, where he'll just start outright cartwheeling towards you, so it's a more dangerous version of the plunger kick since he's actually a lot faster this way, and you actually do have to run away from him here. Although, if you're careful, you could actually get some side swipes on him. But eventually he pulls out the plunger tornado, and I hope you have a lot of energy, because he's gonna start going flying all over the place, and where is that exactly? Straight towards you. He will deal a lot of damage very quickly if you get hit by him. He has basically 4 different ways to attack you, each of them being his plunger arms. And because of the fact that they tend to flail around a lot, that means that if you end up actually getting hit by one, you might end up getting hit by another, and that's where things get dangerous. That's also the reason why you still want to be wary about the plunger kick, because he actually can do quite a bit of damage with it. Although you'd still have to let him actually hit you to get to that point. The upside for having the puncher tornado is the fact that after he finishes his attack, he had spun himself around so many times that he'll actually be dizzy for a moment. This is the prime moment to start attacking him, as he will be unable to do anything for several seconds. However, if you want to skip the fight entirely, this is actually possible. If you either have a puncher that you have made strong enough for your Hogan, or a puncher from Sergeant Sucker Punch himself, he will deem it substantial and let you pass without a single fight. So even though I think he's actually really fun to fight, if you don't want to go to the effort of dealing with him, you can just bring out that puncher and he'll let you go, no problem. Otherwise, he's actually not that bad of a boss fight. You can get some easy hits while he's doing his plunger kick, but I'd avoid him doing the plunger cartwheel because it's harder to hit him there, and to just straight up run away whenever he does the plunger tornado. Repeat after each of these attack phases over and over again, and eventually even you will get the sergeant's respect and the ability to pass.
You cannot succeed where I have failed.
Huh. I underestimated you. You are a worthy foe. Here, take my plunger. You'll need it. Patooey.
It's me, the clock, and I don't move for nobody.
After defeating Sucker Punch, you meet the thing he was trying to face before, the unreasonable Frog, who after explaining who he is, goes to fetch his arms for a minute, but then when he comes back, he very kindly tells you exactly what he plans on doing. Beating the life out of you. And then the battle to the death begins. Now the Frog's actual behavior is not that difficult to deal with, but it is also very chaotic. He will frantically be moving his arms around, trying to slap, hit, do pretty much anything he can to hit you. This fight's kind of like a back and forth, but every time you hit him, he'll actually be knocked backwards slightly. But if he gets too far away from you and he cannot hit you, he will then pull himself towards you, and it's at a pretty terrifyingly fast speed as well. Sometimes if you get too close, he'll back away on his own. But you should be wary, his hands do a lot of damage. He can very easily two-shot, maybe even one-shot you at points. Thankfully, he only attacks you with one hand at a time. So you can get into a bit of a pattern, so you just hit his hands, and then you can knock him back, because that seems to be a good exploit, but eventually he'll clue in that you're using this and start getting himself closer to you, so that way he can actually hit you more. The one thing that really makes this fight interesting is the fact that the Clog is practically immune to everything that isn't the plunger. And I've heard apparently that fire does even worse to him than others, so you can only really use the plunger. So it's all about keeping track of where you are, making sure that you're not too close but not too far away, and keeping a good eye on where his hands are. You have to get yourself into something of a rhythm in order to avoid his hands while dealing damage. Now, I do think that he is kind of easier than Sucker Punch, in the fact that he's a lot simpler of a fight. I do think the fact that because of the fact that you have to get into a rhythm just to actually fight him and stay alive, that kind of edges him over Sucker Punch just barely. And his arms can reach ridiculously far as well, so don't get cocky and think that you're untouchable. Thankfully, he does a checkpoint right next to him, so every single time you die to him, you can always try again and again. But it's all about learning how to dodge. Otherwise, unclog that jerk and send him back to his master. And doom the world, the swirlies.
Oh no! I've been unclogged! Master, I failed. Is my allegiance unwavering and true? The Juice Queen's toes are coming for you. Greetings, weakling.
If you go out from the graveyard and go past all the way to monster level 10, you'll soon find your flight or walk to be interrupted by this abomination called Tony, the foot soldier of the Juice Queen. He has made it his mission to basically just completely destroy and crush you, and he will do so quite literally, with his feet. I'm not joking. This guy really loves talking about his toes. It's kind of weird. Oh wait, back to that to describe it. So Tony is technically a mini boss, but honestly he has everything that makes him a natural boss, so I may as well count him anyway. He is one of the optional fights, because you actually have to go out to find him. Although you'll know because he will immediately be attacking you. So he has two forms of attack. His first one is whenever he talks, he will release spit, which actually can damage you, so be wary of that. So being in front of him is actually pretty dangerous. His second form of attack and main form is to get ready to do a massive jump and then stomp on you, causing an explosion. He'll do this several times, and he'll lock onto you while doing so. But that's not the worst thing he can do. He's not only pretty agile for not having anything other than legs, but he's also very damaging. Just a single hit can actually do a good quarter of your health at least. And when he starts really charging up, which is when you see text like it is on screen, run. Because he's about to unleash a massive stomp that you'll be lucky if you get out of the way. That thing is borderline an instant kill, and the only way I can even think of surviving it is just outright dodging it. So Tony is actually a very fast-paced fight. You have to constantly be moving, and you also have to be constantly damaging him, while being ready to run like hell whenever he starts to do his super mega slam jump or whatever he does. I do think that attacking him head-on directly with a melee weapon is far more dangerous, but I do think it's more fun. A ranged weapon or something that will increase your mobility would definitely help, considering how fast-paced this battle gets later on, especially when he does his Mega Slam, which I talked about already several times. And keep in mind that I have played this game for a while now, and he killed me a couple of times the first time I was fighting him, so it's not like he's a complete joke either. But I'm sure with enough practice, you will prevail and you can manage to kill him with ease. He's probably one of the more difficult bosses, honestly. As you can see, because he made it to number 3 of all spots. I was not too sure which of the two deserved it more, but I think he's slightly easier and a little bit more fun than the next one coming up. So, while he may love talking about his toes, it seems like the days of those toes have long since passed. So seriously, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Why does he keep talking about his toes like that?
My toes! Not my toes. You may think you've won, but know this. My toes shall dance again. It's just begun.
Oh, and you thought that the other bosses required you moving around a lot. The Wasp Queen is, without a doubt, the most chaotic and biggest clusterfuck of a fight I've ever seen. This is probably the most annoying boss in the entire game, and I'm not even putting that lightly. So first things first, the Wasp Queen herself, She has a fair amount of health, and I should also mention there's a lava surrounding the entire arena, so you don't want to get knocked to the there. I'm pretty sure that lava's instant kill, or at least almost instantly kills you. So, the Lost Queen herself has only a certain amount of attacks. The first one is to immediately start shooting homing shots at you. Unlike the creators, whose polywogs just are at the direction of you, these home in on you very accurately, deal burning damage, and secondly, the Lost Queen herself is very reactive and will start flying around and will not stop moving once she's not shooting at you. She will only start moving when she shoots at you, and even then, that's not much of a solace. Thirdly, there's the wasps themselves, which will keep spawning in constantly and harass you. They will not give you a single moment to breathe. You have to constantly move or die, 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 and die again. You are just gonna be dogpiled by wasps everywhere, constantly getting firebombed by the queen, and the best part is, she has another attack. Not only does contact if her damage you, but if you get too close to her thinking maybe you can just keep hitting her because she kinda stops shooting if you keep hitting her, you're in for a nasty surprise. Because if she starts beeping and starts raising up, get the hell away from her because she's about to explode. And when she does, not only does this explosion do a lot of freaking damage, but it actually does clear out some of the walls that are near her. So if you can, you should try to will the wasps next to her. When she does this, she kills some of those annoying additional nuisances. But trust me, you are going to die a lot against her. And to think that this is on the normal difficulty, God, I don't even want to know what difficulty 8 is like considering how bad Ingot was back then. So, what are the strategies? Well, keep moving, that's the one thing you absolutely should do. Do not stop moving for a second. Try using ranged weapons, if possible. And if you can, get the Flamberg or some weapon that does after damage. And get a couple of swings in on her when the law's on next to her, and you are able to get a couple of few hits and then fly away as quickly as possible. Once that is done, you can then just kind of keep repeating, and hopefully this will lead to the boss actually dying. God, this boss is just... good lord. Yeah, the only solace is that 1, she's optional, and 2, her music's pretty good, but this fight really is not fun if you are trying to just melee. It is incredibly difficult to get even a single hit in on this stupid bug. I don't like Lost that much in real life, and this only cements my hatred for them further. Just get her off the screen already. And if you thought that was bad, then this next guy might be even worse, debating on whether you think chaos or helplessness is worse. Because she, in my opinion, isn't even the worst. There's one more.
The soul of the fox is mine.
We have no idea what the hell this thing is, other than that it is the Dream Eater, and it is the most difficult boss in the entire game as of this very moment. Why is he the most difficult boss, you may ask yourself? Well, for one, he has an absolutely massive amount of health. The most amount of health in the game by far, as I can tell. My weapon at the point in the video was very powerful and it's only scratching him slightly. 2. He deals an extreme amount of damage. And 3. Well, you know what? Let's just talk about how the fight plays out. So, before you actually fight him, you have to collect notes from Mr. Fox, not actually being told that he's there, although you may notice him floating about. The more notes you get, the higher his increasement of how aware he is. Or whatever, I'm sorry I'm stuttering about that. But eventually, once you get enough, he will activate and start to attack you. In which case, the battle will begin. The Dream Eater only has 2 attacks. One where he floats slowly towards you, and the second where he will rise up and then lunge towards you, both of which are extremely deadly. Why is that? His claws deal an absurd amount of damage, way more than you'd imagine. In fact, I'm very certain that getting caught in them is almost nearly instant death, so you had better dodge them like your life depends on it. But good luck with that, because they behave in very bizarre ways. They have strange physics and bizarre movements and act almost as if they're their own living creature. So, he's constantly moving, and you have to keep moving around. You're gonna try to aim for the actual main body, as that's where you'll get the most damage, but forget that with his arms constantly flailing about, that also means that his hands are gonna be flailing too, and if he grabs you, you're dead. His arms are very long, and they are very flexible, so don't try hiding in the house either. Sometimes he can get in there, although, if you want to exploit it, you can try getting him stuck in there, and he will not be able to move, and you can get some easy hits on him that way. But otherwise, this guy is genuinely one of the most difficult bosses in the game, and the irony being, he's not even that complex of an enemy, but the damage he deals just cannot be ignored. He is incredibly hard to dodge with a melee weapon. He takes a lot of damage, and he moves very quickly as well. You must keep an eye on him at all times, or else you will die. I kept considering whether or not I considered the Lost Queen or him more difficult, but I ultimately decided he was worse, just by a margin. Just because the damage he deals is more severe. You have to be careful with this guy, or you will die. Ranged weapons are a good idea, but they don't do much, so you might have to go with melee, and I really hope you know how to play the game at this point. He's a later game boss for a reason. But trust me, it is oh so satisfying once you finally kill him. So, if you need any ideas on how to actually finally defeat him, here's my idea. Try to get him around the house. He tends to get stuck. He may not perfectly be so, but your best chance is to get him on the ground, somewhere where you can loop around him and get easy hits on him. Play cheap, do not fight head on. If it looks like he's about to attack you or lunge at you, you go the coward's way out and run. And if you can manage to get him stuck, then try to avoid any other arms or ways that he could damage you, and just keep hitting the main body until he's dead. That seems to be what consistently tends to work the most. You can damage the hands, but they don't do nearly as much damage to the main body as you'd hope, so it'd be better to try to hit the main body whenever you actually can. All in all, that's all the advice I can really give for him. He's really freaking difficult. It may not sound that hard, but if this is the first time you've been playing, yeah, this guy's gonna kill you a couple of times. And on the higher difficulties, is borderline impossible. Although I may try to fight him someday on level 8 difficulty like the rest of them. But man, I hope that you can defeat him as well, because like I said before, it is so satisfying watching the Dream Eater get defeated. Seeing that stupid demonic face fade away. And that's my list of each Juice Galaxy boss from easiest to most difficult. If you agree or disagree, well, let me know. If I've missed anything about any of the bosses, let me know as well. I would always love to learn more about this great game. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe you should subscribe or leave a like to show some support. Of course, it's all in your decision after all. But until then, this is the Anonymous Bird, tuning out.